Individuals can never be greater than a brand. If I had called it Mahipal's Eye Center, that would be an immediate block for good and great doctors to come and associate with us. Storytelling, I think word of mouth is the most important thing in healthcare. Though today the digital space, etc., social media and all are things which make things move faster. It is the last 5 to 10% of difficult cases where if you can give outcomes, you actually become yourself, you make yourself as a differentiated practice.
Hello and welcome to the HT Brand Leadership Series, a series of one-on-one interactions with top brand and marketing leaders who share the industry insights and strategies that have helped shape their stories. Today, we are honored to host Dr. Mahipal Sachdev, a Padma Shri awardee who founded Center for Sight in 1996. Guided by his vision to eradicate preventable blindness, the network has grown into one of India's foremost eye care institutions with over 85 centers across 30 plus cities, 350 plus expert doctors, and service to more than 1.2 million patients annually. A trailblazer in his field, Dr. Sachdev introduced pioneering techniques such as bladeless LASIK and phacoemulsification in India. He has led the way in ophthalmic surgical innovation and training. Join us as we uncover how he transformed a single clinic into a world-class healthcare brand grounded in technology, compassion, and accessibility. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mahipal Sachdev. It's a pleasure to have you. They say vision is what leaders need most, whether it is to build brands or to build institutions. But in today's discussion, we are quite literally talking about vision, the kind that helps us see the world more clearly. And who better to explore this but with a pioneer who has changed the way millions of Indians look at eye care. So Dr. Sachdev, what inspired you to start Center for Sight, especially as you were already a leading surgeon?
Well, thank you very much for having me at the show. I was well established, as you said, as a faculty in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, having actually spent 20 years in the AIIMS, starting as an undergraduate student, going on to post-graduation, senior residency, and then a faculty. But what actually changed was my one-year fellowship stint for cornea refractive surgery at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. That was in 89-90. And actually, that's where I saw people who were actually looking at doing something different. The person with whom I was working was actually aspiring for a Nobel. So the thoughts were high, the dreams were high, and that's where I thought that maybe All India Institute is the best place to be in India as regards medical sciences that time and even today. But I think I wanted to do something where I could bring super specialized eye care with cutting edge technology made available to people irrespective of affordability, and to create these institutions outside the government setup. And that's what actually prompted me to do this and to have the best of the talent, the best of the technology, and to build this brand as it is today, Center for Sight. We obviously right from the beginning have Center for Sight, every eye deserves the best. So that is the inspiration that I got from my overseas stint in US, wherein people were always aspiring to do more. And my dream there was to actually set up something where everyone can get access to good quality super specialized eye care.
That's a beautiful dream to have indeed. So when you began, did you really envision it becoming a widespread brand the way it did? And what kept that vision alive for you?
Well, the vision that kept me going was that I'm a very restless soul. And when I kind of was leaving my fellowship, my preceptor, my mentor there, I would say, he told my family that This is the guy who thinks if he thinks something of today, he wants that it should have been done yesterday. So being perseverant and working out, even today I work 12 to 14 hours a day. That's what's kept the whole thing going. But to start with your answer to your initial part of the question, well, I didn't think that I'll be spreading geographically over so much. My idea was plain and simple to recreate in the private space an eye care institution. Like my alma mater, which is in All India Institute, the Dr. Rajendra Prasad Center for Ophthalmology. But, you evolve, you keep thinking, and getting a property or a piece of land in Delhi was the real big challenge. If you have to make something like an institution or something big, you need a piece of land. And then my frequent travel to maybe Bombay, where the practices of eye care or any healthcare practice was limited to a geographical area because traveling was very, very difficult. And then there was a study also which was there which said that for eye care, people don't want to travel more than 10 kilometers. If you have cancer, maybe you can travel 400, 500 kilometers, heart, cardiac, neurosurgery, etc. So therefore, and also by chance, I got an opportunity to set up one or two other centers where they were outsourcing their eye department in multi-speciality hospitals. A dead LASIK machine in Agra. I had a spare LASIK machine, so I put it up. So that's how actually it spread. A thought process, but also luck, I would say, or an opportunity that stuck. So then, therefore, I went on to bring eye care nearer to the homes of people and in geographical localities which were across, starting with Tier 1 cities and now going on to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as a hub and spoke model. Then that's how the brand actually has permeated today. We have about 87 centers across 16 states and 35 cities. So that's how the whole thing came. Went out, want one single big institution, which is there today in Delhi, but then went on to, it took me 20 years plus to establish that one single institution, but now I am close to a lot of people's home and we serve close to about 4,000 to 5,000 patients every day.
That's interesting. So how does it feel that something that you dreamt of today has become synonymous with eye care?
Oh, well, my dream wasn't that big as it is today. As I told you, the idea was to create a niche as a super specialty hospital, but obviously it seems great. And, every year I keep on reinventing myself and redefining my dream. And obviously it is great when, and that's what it was. If you think of eye care, think of Center for Sight, and that's where we are possibly today in several parts of the country.
So how did the name come up? Was it the same kind of thinking that went into that?
Yeah, so basically something that blocks acquiring talent to come and work with you is the doctor's ego. Unfortunately, doctors have great egos and they prefer to put their own name before anything else. So if I had called it Mahipal's Eye Center, that would be an immediate block for good and great doctors to come and associate with us. Having a neutral name was right there from the beginning. And that is how a brand succeeds, because the brand has to be there without you. And that was the entire philosophy. Have a neutral name. Have a name which connects modernity with eyesight. So that is how it came. And obviously keep the names of individuals can never be greater than a brand. So a brand has to be an over-empowering kind of a thing, much more than any individual.
Very true. In fact, you're so right, because today your work that you do, it blends medical excellence, as you rightly said, with brand building.
Yeah.
So how do you translate that precision into brand identity today?
We actually did a brand study or looking at our pillars, and this was way back in 2004, 2005. And the 4 pillars that came out was efficiency, precision, integrity, and compassion. So integrity and compassion, honest clinical care is the hallmark where we are, and we have to do it efficiently in a professional manner with precision. There is so much of high tech, so many lasers and things like that which have come in ophthalmology, that we had to marry the technology with the talent. And that's how the brand has prospered over time. We were, I would say, fortunate. It was fortunate for us to get 4, 5, again, what I prefer to call blue-blooded Amazonians, doctors who were MBBS from AIIMS, who were postgraduates from AIIMS, who did their senior residency and who were faculty, serving faculty in All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Nowadays, you hear that a lot of people, there is exodus in All India, 35% of the seats are vacant, whatever. But that was a time when we had a mini exodus from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So I would promise them security, job security, and also give them the environment to work. So that is how the brand has prospered. First, get the talent was my motto and is still my motto. Get the skilled manpower, get the talent, and then build on their skills along with giving them technology as also the atmosphere to grow.
Brilliant. So you're right. So Center for Sight has grown, through both greenfield clinics and strategic acquisitions, like your Mumbai expansion. So how do you balance growth with maintaining quality, and that too at a consistent level?
Okay. So again, there are people or institutions or things which influence you. We were always in the greenfield mode. And when I told you that people didn't want to travel, my initial was to, capture or to actually do a very deep and intense penetration in Delhi NCR. Born a Delhiite, my vision at that time was to do a deeper penetration in Delhi and to have a center every 10 kilometers in Delhi NCR. And that's what we started. And today we have about 15 to 17 of such centers in Delhi NCR. So therefore, people don't have to search and go to different places. Now, this was the greenfield phenomena that we did. Getting private equity into Center for Sight, obviously they are people who want to roll up fast, and they brought into me the culture of acquisitions. And the first acquisition or the first association, I would say, came from a doctor who was being challenged from being number 1 in a city of Jodhpur by another group that was, or another set of doctors that was emerging. So he came and he was feeling that his number 1 position is getting this thing, and somehow it just, so कहते हैं ना कार वहाँ चलता गया. So that was the only thing. So the money from the private equity, their thought process got me onto the M&A game. Now, whenever we're looking at M&A, I've said no to far more than yes. And there the DNA of the doctor has to match our DNA. We won't touch with a barge pole anybody who is doing unethical practices. We want people who are right there, maybe number 1, number 2, or upcoming leaders who have the relevant skill set, the relevant academics, and we would tie up with them only. So this is how the whole thing has panned out. We have now about 6, 7, actually 9 locations in Bombay, and there Bombayites are always ahead of time. In India, people would take their practices to their grave, okay, and they didn't like in the West or in the US. People would think of retirement and people would think of selling their practices in healthcare, which is now coming up thick and fast. And the first place where it has come is Bombay. So that's how the whole thing is coming together. And Lakshmi, they have children who are in ophthalmology. Dr. Haldipurkar there is a great name. And we have tied up with 5 such practices. And everyone is a local hero. There are doctors who are local heroes. We are wanting a pan-India brand. A pan-India brand has to have, I would say, strong foundation, and these strong foundations come with doing mergers and acquisitions, and that is what we looked for. Great people, give them something more, give them the management bandwidth, give them ideas for business development, give them co-sharing of technology, co-sharing of doctors, etc., etc. So that's how the whole thing is growing up. So it will be a mix even going forward. It will be a mix of greenfield and brownfields.
Interesting. In healthcare, trust is everything, right? So what, in terms of brand building, do you undertake for, say, storytelling or from patient experience or expertise having been central to gaining that trust? So the question being that how do you use these components like storytelling or testimonials of patients to build that trust?
So basically, I would say the first thing that made us stand apart was being the first movers in technology. Not just in, say, cataract, but in laser vision correction, in retina, in ocular tumors, etc., in glaucoma, and having the right people there. So we have to actually have, as you said, spokespeople, storytellers, influencers, and that is when people, if you have great people who could go anywhere in the world coming to you for their treatment, that speaks a lot. And others see that these are the people who have come and who have actually, they are giving your eyes to your hand to your scalpel. And that is storytelling. I think word of mouth is the most important thing in healthcare. Though today the digital space, etc., social media and all are things which make things move faster. But without being able to give the desired results, outcomes is the key, and it is the last 5 to 10% of difficult cases where if you can give outcomes, you actually become yourself, you make yourself as a differentiated practice. So that's what's happened. The first stage, as I told you, was to get great people with great skill set, empower them with technology, empower them with freedom. The patients will come. You get the word of mouth. Again, one of the other things that helped us was our podium presence in scientific meetings. Having great presence in scientific meeting, be the torch bearers for various super specialties in ophthalmology. And then you get a referral base. Not talking about the people who are motivated in some way or the other to send you, but people who feel that I am sending the patient to the right place. So that is what has actually been a very snowballing effect for us in being able to establish our brand, where talent meets technology and trust. You can trust that we will give them the best outcomes in an honest clinical manner.
Very interesting as an approach. And as you expand into new regions, how do you adapt your narrative while preserving the center's core values? Right? There was that core thing, that the dream, again, I'll keep coming back to that you had when you left AIIMS. And post that dream developed into reality. So how do you really preserve those values as expansion happens?
So as I told you, there are the center point of any healthcare is the patient. Right. If a patient goes satisfied, he is going to maybe tell 5 people, but if he becomes a detractor, he will tell 100 people. So the emphasis is to make every patient go back satisfied. And the second thing is outcomes. So you have to have a satisfied patient with great outcomes. So these are the 2 things that we even concentrate today. Any adverse event, surgical, complications, or in the OPD, etc., which is worth reporting, all of them have to be entered, and the report comes to me on a daily basis. So if we are doing, say, 400 surgeries a day, you would expect a complication rate of maybe 1% or maybe less than that. So there are 2 to 3, 4 adverse events that come, and a deep analysis of why these adverse events have happened, whether there is an A individual who is below par, he needs more skilling, we would do that. Or unfortunately, if that person is not able to deliver, I tend to say the doors of Centre for Sight are wide open. So you have to actually not compromise on that core skill sets being important. And the second is we always do an NPS. So the Net Promoter Score is something that we are looking at right from the guard outside or the doorman to the reception, to the optometrist, to the doctor, to the OR. We grade all, and as other companies would do, we send an SMS and they would wish to, though the retrieval rate is about 5%, but we do get, and then we analyze that. So these are the 2 pillars, I would say, how we maintain. So you need to upskill everybody. You need to maintain the quality that you have, because it's much easier to lose reputation than to build it up. So, and doing the Net Promoter Score, I think that these are the 2 main things which are still our pillars, which allows uniformity of care. 80-90% of the stuff common ophthalmologist would be able to do. It's the last portion where you have to have super specialists. So you have to have a mishran of both. So the model of hub and spoke that we follow, so spoke would be something where you're doing what the average consumer or the average patient would want, and then you have tertiary centers where you could do everything. So I think these are the things, and monitoring them very, very judiciously, cautiously, with a microscope, I would say, is something that we do.
I'll go a little off script here. Why? Because with all of the expansion and the innovation and the differentiation that you spoke or we'll be talking about, do you really get a lot of time to be standing and actually performing procedures, or does it get too much bogged down with admin work?
So basically, we have the recording system in most of our microscopes. So we do ask the person to record if there are complications and things like that. But before I hire anybody or anybody joins, a surgical skill set exposition or a person's giving an unedited video of their surgery, etc., is something which is very important. And you have to look at outcomes. So we do an outcome score, that post-cataract surgery, how many people have recovered to what vision, what are the complications. So those are the things that you have to oversee, but these are systems. So technology, IT, etc., that's helping you get the system, and that's an ever evolving thing. So obviously when you have grown so big, you have to have delegation of duties. We have director medical services, we have individual medical directors for bigger centers, etc. So they have to kind of keep a look. And no, it's not easy to become a medical director of Centre for Sight in a tertiary hospital. It has to be really a person right there. So that's how you do it. We have separate professionals, CEO, CFO, brand guys, all those people, HR. So that has to be looked at. But yes, how I wish a day had 48 hours.
You're also known, a lot for groundbreaking procedures like the bladeless LASIK and the SMILE that you've introduced in the country. Yeah. How do you use innovation as a strategic differentiator in all your communications?
See, without innovation, you are going to be dead. There is so much of cutthroat competition that is there, that if you don't innovate, you don't bring in new things, people will forget about you. So a lot of success of Centre for Sight is on 3 different pillars that we built. So one was the stitchless cataract surgery, which is called as phacoemulsification. Having learned that in US, I came back, and when I came back, my chief of RP center asked me, what have you learned and what do you want? So I said, get me a phaco machine. At that time, there weren't these YouTubes and things from where you could learn. So it was a very tough journey. So that is the innovation. It was your gut feel and your scientific bent of mind that I knew that phacoemulsification, it was criticized a lot, left, right and center. But today it's the gold standard. So persevering with what you feel is going to deliver for the good of the patient is something that has always been the hallmark. The second, apart from phacoemulsification, was the laser vision correction. Again, laser vision correction is a growing field, and it started, you may be surprised, it started way back about 30 years ago. So it's not, so it's taken a lot of time, but we were the first movers. Advanced vitreoretinal surgeries, again getting into ocular oncology, that means tumors of the eye. Usually in young children that happens, and they are mostly from underpaying, underprivileged kind of a thing, and they are detected. So these are the key pillars, and we have always innovated. Let me give you an example of innovation. You heard of radiotherapy when the person has. So when you have ocular tumors, there is a small plaque, okay, a metal plaque which is put onto the eye at the localized area where there is a tumor to give you a radiotherapy treatment at that localized place. This was being imported from overseas. It would cost a bomb. It has a life. So it would cost us about 8-10 lakhs or something like that. But within Centre for Sight, we innovated with BARC, Baba Atomic Research, and we have been able to make this for less than 1 lakh rupees in India, and be able to deliver to these poor kids or anybody who is getting, say, a retinoblastoma, etc. So blade-free cataract surgery, blade-free LASIK, customized LASIK, lenticule extraction, vitreoretinal, advanced vitreoretinal surgeries, glaucoma, Ahmed valves, ocular oncology. So we have innovated and kept abreast with technology that is globally available. Have you ever heard today, over the last decade or more, people from India going overseas for eye care? Yeah. It stopped totally. There is a reverse brain drain. There are people who come from overseas to learn their skill sets. Mind you, India today does more cataracts than US, Europe and China put together. Okay, so that's the level of the skill set that the 30,000 ophthalmologists in India have. So within them, going outside the normal and doing something and innovative has been always something which I am very hungry for. We do overseas conferences, etc., and we try to see technology which is evolving, which is coming, and which is for the good of the patient, and how to get it into India. So that's been our key lever for growth, and obviously the best talent.
The more power
have to exist.
Yeah, I fully agree. More power to you to do that. So, inpatient care.
Yeah.
Every patient, if I am a patient, if I go, I just don't want to feel healed. I want to feel valued. So how do you balance this?
So there are two parts to it. Anything that is done efficiently and professionally, the patient gives value to that. If you are making false movement, if you are underconfident, the patient will lose faith in you. Okay, and confidence comes not from foolish bravado. It comes from solid foundations. So that's what I've been emphasizing. People who have been trained well, or we have trained them and established solid foundations. That's one of the key pillars where the patient comes in this thing. The second thing is, I don't know whether you've looked at it. Has any multi-specialty hospital attracted you to eye care?
Now that you ask, no.
Okay.
Thanks.
So why is that? Yeah. The reason is that their mindset is on average bed stay, cost per bed. Our surgeries take 15 minutes, 10 minutes. We are never over capacity. We are not under capacity in the OT ever. we are having a problem in the chair time that we have in the OPD, because we have to put eye drops for the patient to get dilated and things like that, get his chashme ka number checked, etc., etc. So that takes a little while. So the ambience and the well-being that a person has when a person goes to an eye care center is different from a multi-specialty. You don't have sick patients, you don't have polytrauma, you don't have people with IV sets, all, etc. You don't have very grieving relatives, etc., etc. So I think that's the whole environment that you create to satisfy the patient, to make a patient feel that, bhai, I have come in for something where I go back happier. You come with a cataract, you can walk away seeing. You come with wearing -10 glasses, you get out and you are able to see without glasses. So it's a different kind of a new world. So we are a lot to do with well-being and patients' happiness and satisfaction. So I think that's what we have to create a culture within all the Center for Sight locations.
So in 2017, you launched the NDCFS Foundation to eliminate needless blindness, right? And make cataract care accessible. How did this initiative reflect the brand's broadened social purpose?
Well, you can't be doing healthcare without a social purpose. The idea is to alleviate blindness, to make people see. And as I said to you, every eye deserves the best. And apart from that, no person should needlessly go blind. These are two things. So obviously, there are a lot of people who do not understand that they need eye care. And that's where we reach out to the community. And from reaching out to the community, we would want to get in the patients who could not afford to come in. And mind you, we are not at all big in donations. NDCFS Foundation, NDCFS stands for New Delhi Center for Sight. When I had applied for the name Center for Sight to the trademark and this thing, so they refused because they said anything starting with center means central government. So therefore, I had to put New Delhi before that. So that's how I got the name. So the company name is New Delhi Center for Sight. And NDCFS Foundation is being supported totally by the staff, by the doctors of Center for Sight, and for people who can't pay. I think one of the good things that the present government has done is the Ayushman Bharat, where almost everybody is entitled to a 5 lakh rupees insurance. So I think that's the kind of give back to the society that we have, and we go ahead and do these surgeries, etc., for patients who can't afford to pay.
Okay. So, and with mobile screenings and rural outreach, how do you bring brand level professionalism to understand the undeserved or the underprivileged population?
Yeah, so as I told you, it's the common, it's by rotation, the posting of doctors or optometrists, etc. for these mobile units. The mobile units are fully equipped for doing OPDs. And that is something that we do, that it is supported totally by Center for Sight. So it is our brand, it's our image that we have to go. So we maintain the same standard. We don't do these surgeries in the camps, etc., but you give them to the base hospital. And it's the same OR, the same microscopes, the same consumables, etc., that we use, and the same doctors. So therefore, we have to give them the best results. It's not that we give suboptimal results in our outdoor camps, etc. So they are at par to what we do for our paying patient.
Interesting. But you do hold a great responsibility both as a leader and a mentor. So both as a leader and a mentor, what legacy do you wish to leave behind beyond clinics and patient numbers?
Yeah, the numbers is one part. That's something that's associated with growth, but the legacy would be of empathy, of being a professional healthcare or an eye care provider, and somebody who has been able to nurture new talent and new leadership. So that's the kind of a broad legacy that I'll want to leave behind. And also, if you think eye care, think Center for Sight.
That in fact, you're already there. So, so I'm going to come to a very interesting part now. You can take as much time as you want to answer it, but do not think too much. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. So this is kind of rapid, but your answer can be long. That's fine if you want so. So one value that defines Center for Sight.
One would be slightly different, but what defines is talent, technology, trust.
A technology you think will reshape ophthalmology next?
I think artificial intelligence and lasers.
So I'm going to do a follow-up later, but let's finish this first. Your go-to comfort food after a long surgical day?
Green tea and fruits.
Okay. A non-medical skill essential for success?
Oh, empathy. Empathy for the patient.
Okay.
And thinking out of the box.
Okay, I follow up to that too. A book or a mentor that changed how you lead?
Good to Great, Jim Collins.
Interesting. And I come back to now, technology. You spoke about AI. How does AI, both in terms of technology, in terms of machines, the hardware, and the software aspects in terms of doctors, what role will AI kind of play there?
AI would play largely 2-3 roles. The first role is prediction. Predictive analysis is all going to be AI based. Your father has glaucoma, your mother doesn't have, your optic nerve looks like this, your pressures are this. How do you predict whether the person, how is it going to progress, etc.? So that's prediction. One thing that I'll just wish to tell, which people don't recognize, the eye is the window to your entire body. That is the only place where you can see the blood vessels without needing to cut them and do a dissection, right? You can't see a blood vessel that's under your skin or in your heart or whatever it is. But in your retina, you can see the blood vessels, and there are a lot of imaging techniques that are available. So the prediction of a person going to suffer a cardiac event is being looked at by AI to say that your blood vessels in the eye are looking like this. Can we predict your cardiac event down the line? So predictive analysis is going to be something which is very great. The second is AI integration into treatment modalities. When you're looking into treatment modalities, for example, the lasers, they are all very precise cutting tools, and they are all computer controlled. And how much so for example, we talked about cataract. So there is something which is the robotic blade-free cataract surgery. So you get a picture of the lens of the person. That means the cataract, the density of the cataract, how thick, how big it is. And the AI is going to generate the nomograms or the treatment as to how fine the laser should cut the cataract, how much astigmatism needs to be corrected, and also these are the two main things according to me. One is the predictive value, the second is the surgical treatment, and third is the medical treatment. Drug development, gene therapy, all these things are going to be based on AI generated modules.
Thank you so much for that. One final question. Tell me, I would love this audience today to know, I would love to know something that social media doesn't talk about you.
Social media obviously wouldn't be talking about me that I wish to have a quiet day by the sea in Goa and listen to ghazals.
Who's your favorite singer?
or Jagjit.
Any day.
Any day.
Well, with that, thank you so much, Dr. Say. It was a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Sajdev, for sharing your journey, a powerful blend of purpose, precision, and expansion. You've moved beyond being one of India's top surgeons to becoming the architect of a brand that integrates innovation with compassion. From ambition rooted in purpose to a network built on trust, your leadership epitomizes how healthcare and brand building can go hand in hand. This brings us to the end of the episode of the HT Brand Leadership Series. Looking forward to sharing more such stories with you soon. This is Aman Kajdia signing off.